Hello, my name is Alan Foom, and today I'm going to talk about US light tight oil rig counts, why they're so important to the oil market. So, why is this important? Well, the rig counts, a census of active oil drilling rigs, is produced by a company called Baker Hughes. They're a large US oil services company, and part of it was founded by Howard Hughes, hence the Hughes name, back in the early part of the 20th century. So they've been around for a long time to do a lot of really good work to help us deliver the projects. In North American light tight oil, also known as shale oil, we need to keep drilling new wells to maintain production, which is why the rig count is so important. Each well declines very rapidly relative to a conventional well, so you're running like Mo Farah just to stand still. Drill, 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 treadmill. You want to grow, you have to run like Usain Bolt. A DUC is a drilled and uncompleted well, and I'm going to produce a companion video to this about this. And it's an inventory of wells that's in a pipeline to replace older wells, but not all DUCs will be completed. Both figures are watched closely to maintain future production, but in this video I'll be concentrating on the rig count. So why is US oil production so important globally? Well, the US is still the biggest oil market in the world, still the biggest oil consumer, though China's catching up pretty rapidly. And the US also used to be the biggest oil importer. Well, not anymore. The reason for that is light tight oil. 2007, US produced 5 million barrels of oil per day. 2019, that went up to 12.5. So US oil production was believed to be dead and buried. Shale resurrected it. Currently producing 11.2 million barrels of oil per day. That's roughly 12-13% of the world's oil production. And all the growth was from light tight oil. So the US has turned around from being a big importer to now being virtually independent and actually a significant exporter of some grades of oil. If you want to know more about oil grades, I've got a video about that, about benchmark crudes. So where are these basins? So you've got Basin in North Dakota, Permian in West Texas, New Mexico, which is the key basin, Eagle Ford along the Gulf Coast, and the gas sphere, you've got Haynesville on the Louisiana-Texas border, and Appalachia in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and Ohio. So that includes Marcellus and Utica plays. The Permian, the key play, they produce 4.8 million barrels of oil per day. The Permian was an independent country, just this part of Texas, not the whole of Texas. It'll be the fourth biggest producer in the world, behind Russia, Saudi Arabia, and the rest of the USA. Eagle Ford and Bakken individually produce more than around, they'll be in the top 20 of world countries. So this stuff is important. As an aside, the main oil and gas basins happen to be located on the lands of these particular Native American tribes who tended to be rather fierce, the Apaches, the Comanches, the Lakota, the Sioux, and the Iroquois and the Mohawks. So if you're looking to do any exploration for light tight oil elsewhere, you might just want to check out an ethnology map for particularly fierce indigenous peoples. So looking at oil production by play, and you can see it broken down here. So dark blue is the rest of the USA, mid blue is the Gulf of Mexico offshore, and a light blue is Alaska. And you can see how the rest of the USA has declined. Gulf of Mexico is sort of humming and eyeing with individual interruptions due to hurricanes. So this was Hurricane Ivan back in 2008. Alaska has had a steady decline. But the light tight oil has really taken off, and it took off about 2011-ish. So you got Bakken, Eagle Ford, and Permian. All of these existed, so this is the Permian production from vertical wells, and what that has made become possible is via horizontal wells and fracking. So just to look at what was happening in the oil patch in terms of pie charts. So 2007, producing just over 5 million barrels of oil per day. Roughly almost 3/4 of that was conventional. So that's rest of USA, Gulf of Mexico offshore, and Alaska. And you can see by 2015, up to 9.3 million barrels. That's the big three. LTO plays, that's the other LTO plays. And now it's been virtually reversed. So from being around 73% conventional, it's now 73% unconventional with 12.6 million barrels in 2006. So complete turnaround. But it's hard work oil. Very hard work oil. This is based on a slide from a Schlumberger investor presentation, Schlumberger being another oil services company. And this is looking at how Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the USA, the big three oil producers, are doing. So in terms of production per day, they're kind of similar, both 11-ish million barrels of oil per day. But in drilling footage, you can see Saudi Arabia is having significantly less drilling footage, significantly fewer wells, and significantly more reserves. Now, there's a question about Saudi reserves, but I'm not going to discuss that here. Russia's sort of halfway between the two, actually more like, a third or a quarter of the way up relative to Saudi Arabia, relative to the USA. So the Saudis are eating fillet steak, Russia's eating burgers, with the USA is on mechanically recovered meat. But it's American ingenuity, American technology, American know-how, American management methods that are enabling the mechanically recovered meat to take place. There's a lot of that out there. So comparing LTO with deep water, this is a slide from an investor presentation from Hess Oil. Hess Oil is a large cap American company that's active both in deep water and in unconventionals. A lot of the peer group, other light tight oil companies, a lot of the American large cap companies, have effectively given up on the deep water and have concentrated on the light tight oil. So for a similar project, 120,000 barrels of oil per day, which is what they're going to get from this massive project in Guyana, which they were in partnership with Exxon with. You have got much better rock, therefore fewer wells. So 8 wells versus 1,500 wells. Average recoverable per well, 63 million barrels versus about 1 million barrels. Cost, 3.7 million versus 3.7 billion versus nearly 13 billion. Unit development costs, 7 versus 12. And you're in a situation where break-evens are slightly lower. So why on earth is anyone bothering with unconventionals? Well, risk profile. The unconventionals have a lot less technical risk. They have no exploration risk. Only 1 1/3 exploration wells work. Okay, they've had a lot more success from that than Guyana, but there's plenty that didn't work elsewhere. And also the capex is spread out, so you don't have to pay it all in one big lump. Longer time frame, you can learn as you go along rather than having to do everything at once. So Hess are doing both worlds, and there's an explanation why they're doing it. To look at the amount of wells that they exist is quite staggering. Comparing the UKCS, where I've done most of my professional life, to Bakken, Eagle Ford, and Permian. So UKCS had about 1 million barrels of oil per day from 2,128 wells, so just over 2,000 wells. Bakken, 1.4 million from 14,000 wells. Eagle Ford, 1.5 million from 20,300 wells. And a Permian, 4.1 million from 17,520 horizontal wells. There's also another million from about 33,000 vertical wells within the Permian. It's hard work oil. Shale Profile is a really good website to check out if you're interested in this. And what they do is they do a graph showing production per well in basins, etc., by vintage, etc. So it's all clickable via Tableau. They've got a free version, they've got a paid version. The paid version obviously has significant enhancements, but this is from the free version. So this is well production by vintage. So what you can see is that wells decline with a long tail. So you have to keep drilling in order to maintain production. And that leads to the fact that the US light tight oil is about 1/3 of the international rig count. So this is again from Baker Hughes. This is the census of drilling rigs around the world. They don't include the former Soviet Union, they don't include onshore China, but this is everybody else. So it's probably a fair, reasonable representation of what's there. Again, North America is about 47% of the world's rigs. That's where the market's at. So coming to the rig count. So this is the rig count. They publish it once a week on a Friday. And this is broken down by play. So you have the big three, the Eagle Ford, the Bakken, the Permian. The blue is other basins and other plays. And these other ones are the more minority plays. So this is the Mississippian, which has virtually died. And these ones are the Woodford, which is in Oklahoma, and the red is Niobrara, which is in Colorado. So in 2014, the oil world had a very difficult time when the oil price went from $100 to $30. Not quite overnight, but close enough. So again, rig count responded quite rapidly, and in 2016 is where we thought we reached bottom. Then we had a recovery, kind of going steady for 17, 18, 19, and then COVID hit. Boing. You can see a rapid fall off and a steady recovery since then. And you can see how dominant the Permian has been. So since about 2016, the Permian has taken roughly 65% of the total drilling count, and a similar portion of the production. If you look in production response to the rig count, so the rig count in orange, the production in blue, so that's for all basins, that's for Permian, that's for Eagle Ford, that's for Basin. So what you had, despite the fall in rig count, the fall in production was relatively small because we're drilling smarter wells. Longer laterals, longer hole, longer horizontal stages, more frac stages, getting more bang per buck. Yes, it might cost a bit more, but you're making more money out of that in order to get more resources faster. So when you had the recovery from 2016 onwards, bigger recovery in production than it was relative to the others. And you can see that in Eagle Ford and the Basin, they've kind of been flattish because, again, their rig counts haven't gone up that much. So in terms of response to prices, it's very rapid. You're in a situation where you have the 4 to 6 months response in pre-COVID days to oil price. So the oil price goes up, the rig count goes up. 4 to 6 months later, oil price goes down, the rig count goes down. 91% correlation, about as good as it gets. So you can predict what was going on because people responded. However, in COVID times, people responded a lot faster, and it was extremely difficult for people in the oil patch. Again, Permian, Basin, Eagle Ford, and then others. The dark blue line is the WTI oil price, main West Texas Intermediate. Again, video on my oil blends will explain what that is. And the red is the frac spread count. So my video coming up on the DUCs will explain what that is. This is the Great Texas Freeze. So again, fall and then recovery. When you plot rig count versus oil price, you had two separate worlds. So this is the pre-COVID world. Again, relatively high oil rigs, and then they fall off as COVID strikes. And then slight increase in price, but not really that much of a, but a still declining oil in terms of rig count. And then from May, recovery in price, recovery in rig count, so much so that it's again a 91% correlation with a different formula, and that's without any lag. So what's going to happen next? Shale Profile posted this on social media. This is their predictions for future US oil and gas production by basin. So that's oil here and that's gas here. Again, Permian is king, then Eagle Ford, and then Williston, which is the Basin and Three Forks in North Dakota. So to sum up, rig counts a census of active rigs published every week by Baker Hughes on a Friday. North American light tight oil, we need to keep drilling to maintain production. Okay, we're drilling better wells, we're drilling smarter wells, longer laterals, more frac stages, etc. But we need to keep going. So we've been running like Mo Farah's to stand still. We need to grow. We might need to run like Usain Bolt. Well, maybe might need to run like middle distance runner David Rudisha or somebody like that rather than Usain Bolt now because we've got smarter wells. So hence both figures are watched closely to predict future US production. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.